All right, a Fox News alert. The U.S. now deploying the USS Lincoln Carrier Strike Group to the Middle East in response to what officials are calling clear indications that Iran is planning an attack on U.S. forces in the region.
National Security Advisor John Bolton saying, quote, the United States is not seeking war with the Iranian regime, but we are fully prepared to respond to any attack, whether by proxy, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or regular Iranian forces. Here now to react is National Security Analyst Ryan Mauro. Ryan, thank you so much for being with us.
Sure thing.
It seems like this whole situation escalated quickly. How big of a deal is everything that's going on in the Middle East right now with Iran?
Well, it happened very suddenly. Now, we're used to hearing heated rhetoric going back and forth between the United States and Iran, so some people feel that this is kind of like business as usual. It actually isn't. This is a pretty sudden movement. It's a reaction to something that the public does not know about. And what the anonymous U.S. officials are saying is that apparently intelligence came in indicating that Iran and its proxies were planning some sort of attack on the U.S. military. It's possible that this information came in from a defector. There was a reported defection that happened from a high-level member of the Revolutionary Guards, and he brought documents with him. So it could be related to that.
Wow.
But what I would warn people is that if you hear about an attack on U.S. military bases or something like that in the coming weeks, and it's not connected blatantly to Iran, it doesn't mean Iran's not involved. Because a lot of people have forgotten that Al-Qaeda has a thriving branch of leadership within Iran, and they use them as a proxy.
You think that they possibly could push this thing through Al-Qaeda for an attack there in Afghanistan, where we have about 14,000 troops?
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this. The foreign minister, Javad Zarif of Iran, just last week with Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday, talked about the idea that he thinks that John Bolton and others and other Middle East leaders as well, the Saudis, maybe Israelis, want a war between Iran and the U.S., that there's this conspiracy, that there's a conflict that they want. What was your response to that?
Being tough with the Iranian regime is exactly what you need to do to avoid war. This is the substantive anti-war position, is to hit them with sanctions, and to whatever degree possible. I frankly think we don't do enough.
So you don't think Bolton is inflating the threat here? You don't think Bolton's making something more of this?
No, definitely not, especially because we know the pattern of Iranian activity. And look, if Iran really wanted to not have a conflict, they wouldn't be harboring Al-Qaeda leaders.
Also, with that interview with Chris Wallace, they talked about the fact that the United States just named Iran's military a terrorist organization. What does that necessarily mean? When you label something a terrorist organization, do we treat them differently? How big of a deal is that?
Well, it adds criminal penalties for anyone that would provide them with any type of military assistance. So it does add increased pressure to them. But I don't think that this apparent Iranian plot is in reaction to that. I think it's in reaction to the sanctions that are targeting the Iranian oil industry, because that's what's really going to scare them. When you lose at least half of your budget for your entire government, and your government's already poor and your people are essentially revolting against you, you're going to start to panic a little bit. And so the Iranian regime, from their wicked perspective, actually wants a conflict, because in their mind that's what causes a rallying effect that can keep them in power.
And everything on the United
and they want
States.
oil prices to go up. They need that to happen as well.
Right. Yeah, they've been very much crippled by the sanctions. Let's move on to North Korea. This is another foreign policy area that's been troubling for the administration in the past week. Kim Jong-Un watches these missiles be fired off. It was all quiet in North Korea for quite a while. Then he meets with Vladimir Putin, and all of a sudden he changes his tune a little bit. What do you make of this?
Right. I think that there's a few different objectives here. The first and most obvious one is to drive a wedge between Trump and Pompeo, because there's a difference in the rhetoric here between those two leaders. I mean, Pompeo will more openly talk about North Korea as a dictatorship. He has a history of saying that we should ally with North Korean dissidents that are challenging the regime so we can move past the regime, not just the nuclear weapons program. And North Korea has been saying we don't want Pompeo involved in these nuclear talks. And so what they're trying to do is say there's a deterioration in the relationship, and Pompeo is to blame. Trump, take out Pompeo. We want him removed from the equation.
And that's probably not going to happen. I mean,
it's not going to happen.
Is denuclearization with North Korea a pipe dream, or do you think this could actually happen?
I believe in miracles.
But it's going to take a miracle.
What do you think Pompeo should say to Sergei Lavrov when he meets with him today in Finland?
And that would be...
Beware of your own people.
beware of your own people.
I think the common denominator
should he
here,
come down a little bit harder on Lavrov and say, hey, what are you guys doing with North Korea? Why are you talking to Kim Jong-Un, and why is he firing off missiles?
I mean, you can do the dot connecting here when you're talking about from Russia to China to Venezuela to Iran to North Korea. They're all operating almost as a single entity, sharing resources, sharing advice, and we need to start treating it like that instead of taking just one situation and the next situation as if they're isolated conflicts. No, they're all kind of working together and are following similar plans. To make progress on one front, you need to make progress on all of the fronts.
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
It's a crazy, crazy world, and
It is.
thank you for analyzing it for us. The time